Hey everyone, this is BlackRain79 with DradeTheBar.com. I am back here today with another member review video for you guys. Today I'm doing a review for Drag the Bar member Robo177. As you can see here, he plays 2 cent, 5 cent Zoom currently, and we got 4 tables lined up, so the action's probably going to go pretty quickly here. I'm going to try to keep up though. A little bit of background on Robo, or his real name is Demi. Hope I pronounced that right. He actually is a pro table tennis player and coach from the island of Crete. He's been playing poker for about 4 or 5 years now. He originally started off with MTTs, and I think he told me that he didn't really like cash games at that point. He was kind of, a lot of people like MTTs, especially at the beginning. I still like them, chasing the big score and everything, but they can be long, and sometimes you're chained to your desk for 8-10 hours and you go out in 12th and you just hate life. So that's there's pros and cons, of course. But he eventually did switch over to cash games, I think about a year or two ago. He read my first book, which I think helped him out a bit get going at the lower stakes, and he's played as high as NL10, but he's had a little bit of problems lately in just trying to handle himself in those games. Had a bit of a downswing. But, overall he still has big hopes. This year he plans on getting to Supernova, and his long-term plans are Supernova Elite and $1 million in poker. I like your style, Demi, Robo177. And then he's going to retire from poker when he makes $1 million. I would do the same. I think it's a brilliant plan. So let's get into this here. So four tables of Zoom. So the action might go pretty quickly, but I'm going to try to do my best here to keep up with everything. So the HUD is pretty basic, as you guys can see. We're going to have... actually, let me just number the tables first, just in case anybody's never watched any of my videos. Upper left will be table 1. Upper right will be table 2. Bottom left will be table 3. And bottom right will be table 4. So I'll use table 1 here, and I'll use seat number 6, Butch SD. So the 23 is going to be his VPIP, the amount of hands that he percentage of hands that he plays. 13 is going to be his pre-flop raise. 1 is going to be the aggression factor. The 92 is the number of hands. I forget what Demi or Robo told me about the other numbers here. I'm not going to worry about them too much. Given the samples that we're generally dealing with here, I don't see anybody over... Oh, here's one over 100. There's another one, actually. But we don't have any huge samples on anybody here, so... excuse me, the other numbers that he has on his HUD are probably not going to be that useful anyways, so I'm just going to focus on the big three, as I call them, the VPI, PPFR, and the aggression factor, and we'll just kind of go from there. And it's kind of how it goes in Zoom as well. People are always asking me about what's the difference between Zoom and regular tables. Well, I mean, one of the most obvious ones is that you don't build up a sample on your opponents anywhere near as quickly. So you could play for weeks in these games and still only have a couple hundred hands, or even less on a lot of the regs. So that's just kind of the way it is, and that's why I like to take a little bit more of an ABC approach in these games, because you just don't have the information to do a lot of stuff. But that said, if I notice that somebody looks to be a weaker reg to me, I'll definitely take advantage and probably actually 3-bet them even more in these games, because I think people play a little bit more robotic, that sort of ABC, just grind it out kind of style. So with that said, let's get into this. Been blabbing too much here. Okay, so he is in on all tables, it looks like here, and we'll see what happens. So pretty much just folds all around so far. I think that's pretty typical for most people. Table 1 will play those 7s there. So he comes in for 3 times the blind, which I think is totally fine. It's exactly what I do as well. A lot of people like to make funky raise sizes these days to, I don't know, 2.2 times the blind or something silly. Okay, so I don't mind the raise on table 1. The guy does have a bit of a short stack. We don't have any... Oh, he's a huge fish. Oh, yeah. We got 10 hands on the guy, and he's 100% VPIP. So, Yeah, I mean, I think the raise is probably fine on the flop. It's a little bit weird because the guy doesn't have a huge stack, so I think we'd just call on table 4, given that it's just a min, and also again, always look at the stack size. Most important thing. First on table 4 there, he doesn't have a huge stack. We didn't, or I mean, he does have a reasonable stack, about 80 big blinds. I didn't really see all the action on table 4. Sorry about that. Like I said, the action is going to go a little bit quicker here. But on table 1, I was focusing on the pocket 7s hand. I think it's fine to just, fast play against the kind of bad players at these stakes here. But he also had a very, very short stack, so it's kind of it would be okay to maybe just call his pot bet as well on the flop there, and then just call on the turn and let him continue the bluff on the river and stick all the money in. I'm not sure what happened on table 3. I'm not sure if we c-bet there or not. I'd generally like to c-bet in that spot, probably no matter what. It's a little bit weird on table 1. I might bet a little bit less because this seems to be sort of a tight passive reg. I don't think he's ever calling without an ace. Whereas if he somehow has a boat, we're kind of, we're just going to be losing basically. He basically is never going to call us with worse, especially if we bet closer to pot on that board. This is becoming a little bit difficult to keep up here, but it is what it is. Table 2, I believe that's a 3-bet pot with ace king. It's kind of a bit of a, I mean, it's great to hit our card, but we need to be a little bit careful on that board versus this kind of passive reg. So it's a typical bet and fold. I didn't see what happened on table 3. I'm trying to keep up here. So yeah, I would just open. Yeah, both of those hands are fine on table 1 and 2. Probably just giving up versus the nit for sure on table 3. I didn't really see what happened, but I do believe. Yeah, I think it's fine to open the wide range. That probably just flat table 1. Yeah, and check raise seems to be pretty standard there now. Yeah, I would just flat. Man alive, this is. I don't know what's going on table 4. I can't. It's fine to rep that card. I didn't really see what happened, to be honest. So probably check raise, although it looks crazy strong. But there are some draws. It's possible. What I was about to say is this is still NL5, and a lot of people think that somehow there's world beaters or something that's at this limit, and it's just not the case at all. There's still a lot of bad players, and that's why I suggest that you just play the sort of very typical. He's got king 10. Okay, I was like, you better not have the jack queen. Just play the typical, the approach that I talk about in my first book, for instance, where it's and on my website and all my videos, where it's just like, don't give them any credit for intelligence, for lack of a better word. Just play the most straightforward style of play possible. So if you have a big hand, raise it. If you don't have much, don't go on wild bluffs. I mean, you saw that we just stacked that guy on table 1. It helps when they have 2 pair, of course, but you can see that that guy called a check raise into 2 people with king 10. Which is just absolutely ridiculous. When Robo, or sorry, Demia, or you've got a different screen name as well. I'll call you Robo because that's what you go by on Drag the Bar. When he made that check raise, on table 1, I kind of cringe a little bit but I'm only thinking in terms of higher stakes. At higher stakes, that just seems like such an obvious, wow, I have the nuts. I mean, what else can you have? Who's going to check raise on that board? Check raise 2 people. It just screams, I have the nuts. But you can see that, our friend there at table 5, or at NL5, had no problem just calling with his, I just 3-bet on table 2. Or call is okay, I guess, as well. But even the play on table 2 there, it just goes back to my point of just playing the most straightforward game and just not balancing anything. Not just don't even bother. They're morons that are just going to call anyways. I got king 10. I mean it's the most obvious. Huge, just screams value. You check raise 2 people, and the guy still calls with king 10. So that's why I would still just play that straightforward style at these stakes, because they don't think about what you're doing. It's you've still got just terrible regs and fish and stuff everywhere at these stakes, and so it just makes sense to do the sort of, for lack of a better word, unbalanced, highly exploitative game that I talk about basically in all my videos, books, on my blog, and everything like that for these stakes. I definitely do not necessarily suggest that once you get to NL25 or higher, where people start to think about the game a little bit more these days, and what we're representing when we check raise 2 people. I mean, it's just a ridiculous bet on table 1 there. I would just raise. And I think I would check back on table 1 now, because I just don't think you're going to get folds that often from this player. I don't like pot. I definitely do not. We've also got a one-liner to a straight there. If he's got a 4, he wins. I'm not a huge fan of your sizings there. Yeah, it's. I think your sizing is just way too big there. Throwing an entire buy-in and on the river is a value bet there. I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying before. Even though, yeah, actually, I mean the player we're against on table 1 there actually is a tight reg, so it actually is similar to the hand at the beginning of this session. Where we had Broadway, and I was talking about how I think that the raise size is a little bit too big. Table 3, I see that you're pointing something out there, but it's fine. I typically just wouldn't call with that hand pre-flop. I like how you played it post-flop, talking about the Queen 8 on table 3 there. Going back to the Ace Jack hand though. All right, okay, so table 2, sorry. Just trying to keep track of what's going on here. I might peel 1 on table 2. I think that's kind of the whole point in calling, I guess. So if we hit something like that, we got to stick around for a bit. Probably giving up versus a passive player at this point. Okay, so getting back to the Ace Jack of Hearts hand. The flop raise is totally standard and everything when a guy bets 15 cents into 84 or whatever on earth it was. He's obviously a bad reg. You can see he's like a 15, or actually it's a new guy at that table now. But he was like a 50-6 or something. He's not very good reg. So yeah, flop is standard. I'm not really sure that I love your turn bet. Your sizing was okay. I think it was about 75% that you bet. I'm not in love with that bet though, because it was a 2, which is not really a great card to bet on because it doesn't scare anything. And also because just the player we're up against. Actually, it looks like that player is back now. Maybe I'm seeing things, I don't know. I thought it was that Sepruka guy who's a 14-8-1, as you can see, that's like. No, oh, this is Zoom. Sorry, my bad, guys. This is Zoom. I don't play a lot of Zoom. I'm still thinking in terms of regular games. Like, why are people changing in the seats? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the guy's incredibly tight. He's like a 14-8 huge net, which is Queen 7's a little bit adventurous there, but if you have a reason, that's cool on table 3. So basically, what I'm saying is you're against a super tight guy. On table, yeah, probably just call for the set mine with deep stacks on table 1. I'm not sure about the turn bet with the Ace Jack with the Ace Jack of Hearts hand, simply because it's a 2, it doesn't scare anybody, and you've also got an extremely passive player who probably is in there with a pretty a tight passive player, probably who was in there with a strong hand and probably called the raise on the flop with a fairly strong hand. The 2 isn't going to scare him at all. He's probably a calling station because he's a bad reg, and he's probably going to call you. And we're probably, we've got lots of equity, of course, with our ace-high draw and everything, and our overs, but we probably, on table 4 there, I don't think I would, I'm not sure I would barrel against that guy. Actually, I don't know. I mean, it depends if he raises or not. He raised in this spot, but if he typically raises, his aggression factor is a little bit on the low side. I think you need to definitely fold as played now. I don't think he's going to raise here without something that beats you. I don't think if he's hanging around with like ace 5, he's just not going to raise here. So I'm not really loving your call there. I think he's probably got a 2 or a 4 most of the time. And anyways, I just want to finish up the thought with the ace-jack hand. I think you're just definitely paying off the nuts. He's probably got a 2 or something silly, but it still beats you. The ace-jack hand, I really do not like the bets on the end there with the full pot bet. Okay, my bad. Nice call. Nice work on table 4. He definitely was a bit of definitely a maniac. He was a 53-47, something like that. So I generally don't look those guys up. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's good. I think I should say I think it's reasonable. He definitely is going to be bluffing more than most people there. I'm definitely having a hard time keeping up here. But typically I just don't get involved that often at these stakes. You definitely can play sheriff and look them up. I think you'll be good there. Maybe as much as 50%, 40%, something like that. Against a player like that who definitely be bluffing a lot. But I typically don't get involved. I typically just wouldn't barrel in that spot, to be honest. I don't like getting myself involved in larger pots out of position. So I would have probably just called the turn, something like that. It's not terrible, though, to get in there and make a big call against a maniac, though. It's just typically not my style at these stakes, but that's fine. Okay, the ace-jack hand, finally. Just getting back to that. I don't like your pot size bet on the river. If you're going to value bet, it should be like half pot at most, because you're against a tight reg there. He's just not going to call a full buy-in with... I think it was a 9-high board or something. He's not going to call a full buy-in if he's hanging on with a 9 or something like that. You need to bet like half the pot or something if you want to call. And the thing is like I talked about in a few other spots already in this video, is if you're wrong and he has the nuts, well, you've just thrown in half a buy-in, that you're going to have to fold, or that you've wasted basically, which is obviously a huge amount. So I think what's going on here, I remember Demi was telling me he's going to switch over, I think, to NL10 halfway through this video, so I think that's what is going on here. Which is good. It gives me a bit of a break to analyze these hands a bit more. 4 tables of Zoom is a little bit... It's fine to play this many tables when I play Zoom.
Okay, so this was the 15 minutes, like this hand before with the...
Okay, I'm going to skip ahead here.
Okay, let's go for the NL10.
Just because he's talking about switching over, so... So yeah, we're at NL10 now. Okay, so I hope that was useful for. Yeah, so that guy's an insane nets on table 2. I think the most important hand of that set at least the NL5 bit was the ace-jack hand, even though we won it, which is great. But I think that there were definitely some issues on the turn and river, which I hope that I got across at that point. So we've also actually switched over to full ring at this point, which should be noted. And as Demi is correctly doing on table 1 there, we should be stealing with any 2 versus those huge nets. Alright, so let's switch over to NL10 here, which is... we're also playing full ring. These games do play different, the regs here definitely are better, but they're not like way better or anything like that. Ace 7, there's a hand you could just randomly just 3-bet for something to do. We have no history with that guy. likely we're going to get credit. I do like taking a hand like that when I don't know the guy, because I think that we're going to get, as I've talked about, I believe before, I think we're going to get more credits when we 3-bet an unknown, because most people think that most people just give you more credit, when they don't know who you are. They're like, well, there's probably no reason for this guy to be screwing with me. And we're not totally screwing with him. Ace-7 suited is a decent hand. But yeah, it's just a thought there in late position. It's something you could do. So NL5, NL10, I mean, these games definitely do play a little bit differently, but I don't think that the difference is quite as pronounced as between NL2 and NL5. In terms of... Table 4 is an interesting card. It's a spot where I might barrel against a reg like that. I know. Again, it's not a huge scare card or anything, but I think that this guy seems to be a little bit float happy. He seemed to call pretty quickly on the flop there. It could be a spot you could check raise bluff or something like that. I mean, it kind of depends on just what you know about that player. It's always the problem with full ring, of course, or sorry, zoom, is you never have a huge amount of information on people, but checking and just giving up is not the end of the world either. Okay, so we managed to get 2 calls, amazingly, on table 1, which is a little bit interesting. We don't really have anything to go on of what's going on with either of these players. So I think probably a bet fold is probably fine in this spot. Wow, it's kind of weird we're just getting called. I'm just probably going to fold on table 2 there when my under the gun gets 3-bet. So I agree with that. Wow, weird. Okay. This is a huge issue in your game, I think, is betting that amount. Now, I guess that, clearly it's at NL5 and NL10 these days, you've still got guys that are just not going to fold anything. So maybe I'm wrong. I mean, I don't know. Like, it seems like, I mean, that's a play that I would always make at NL2. NL5, I'm definitely a little bit cautious. Of course, we didn't have any information on that guy, so he's actually, given that he's an unknown, yeah, I can maybe see it. But against most typical NL10 regs these days, I'm not shipping there. It's definitely it's an interesting spot. You got full value, which is great. Probably call with the suited connector on table 3 there. It's an interesting spot because when they do call on the turn, I mean, you don't normally put somebody on Queen's pre. They obviously didn't 3-bet, which is a little bit strange, but but not ridiculous or anything like that. It's definitely a way you can play the hand. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. I think that I guess in that spot, considering you kind of do have a sort of a nut hand, I guess, for your pair, it's reasonable. I'm contrasting this hand with the Ace Jack hand, but I think that you do need to think about your river, especially bet sizing, a little bit more, especially when it's really deep. Because a lot of the times I didn't really have enough time to look at the actual stacks. I thought it was deep as well. 4 tables of zoom is definitely a bit of an issue for commentating. I do think you need to look at your river bet sizing and ask yourself if it makes sense in all spots, especially against the player type, where the stacks are, and a lot of times when I'm value betting on the river, it's definitely not full pot. It's not anywhere even close to that. So, and sometimes it's not value betting at all, depending on the player type. So. But when they happen to have queens and you got aces, then it definitely works. But But yeah, I mean, that's definitely the weird thing about Zoom is just you never really know who you're playing against, and that's I mean that's honestly why I just don't play Zoom because I feel like I just have a much bigger edge when I know something about my opponent. I don't like if I don't need the thing is like if you play like live poker, you're just unless you play like every day or something. I mean, most of the time you're not going to know anything about your opponent. You're not going to know a lot anyways, and that's the way live poker is. But on the internet, I don't think it has to be that way. And I would just always rather have information about my opponents. And just I mean, the other huge drawback, of course, of Zoom is that you just can't table select. I mean, I want to be able to play against the bad players as much as possible, and I only get them once every 20 hands or whatever it is, depending on the size of the pool in these games. If you're looking to just get in the max amount of hands, I know that Demi is trying to go for Supernova and stuff this year. I think it's okay. I'd probably just bet again with the 6-5 there. I don't know what that green tag means, but I think we probably need to call on table 4 now, given how the hand was played. I think that he can have a lot of different aces that he's just value betting there. Um, I probably would have bet the turn though. Yeah, okay. So good call there. I mean, it's not terrible to not bet the turn there. I mean, I just think that we do have to call the river, which is good. You did that. So, I mean, that's an alternate line of alternate way of playing it, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I typically would just bet the turn though, against what I believe is an unknown. I'm not sure what the green means. Just for value, just so it doesn't pop up with another diamond on the river, and we're just kind of in a ridiculous spot where he bets like half the pot and we have no idea what to do or something. But there's nothing terribly wrong with that line either. It's reasonable. So we're against sort of a SLP on table 3. I think that your line is. I think it's probably fine. I think that the check is probably fine as well with on the king scare card and the flush. At the end there, I'm trying to put this player on a hand. It's kind of difficult, of course. It's Zoom, and he's a bad player, so we don't know. He's could have a hand like that. He could have a hand like I think it was a 6-high board. He could have a 6. He could have pocket 2s. He could have ace high. Who knows? He could have a flush draw. So yeah, I think the hand was played fine. We picked up the straight draw on the turn as well, so I think it's fine to just continue firing. As I was saying, I was going to say before with table when we were playing NL5, the really really wide opens that Demi is doing here, I think are still okay in these games, even NL10 as well. Because I mean, you look around the tables, you see so many extremely tight regs and stuff like that don't 3-bet a lot. So I think it's okay. And you're obviously, I mean, table 3 there taking advantage of tight regs and stuff is fine, even with hands like that, of course. But generally, as you move up the stakes, I wouldn't be opening, queen 4 offsuits and stuff like that very often. I would just 4-bet on table 2. This guy's just a maniac. It's just definitely 4-bet time for value, or chip is fine as well. Possibly barrel on table 3. I mean, it just seems like such a great card to rep. I'd probably just call with the jacks. I guess 3-betting is okay as well. It tends to put us just in a bit of a gross spot at times with jacks. Again, I'm really playing the limit more than anything, and not sort of the way that I would play specifically at higher limits. I prefer more or less just to see a flop with jacks. I don't mind the raise with jacks on table 4 there. I think that we're probably ahead most of the time given his bet sizing. something like that. It feels like a ace king or something like that a lot of the time. Hopefully, if we don't hit our jack, if he does have that hand. Now that he does call, it's possible he hit the queen or something like that. I would probably just check back rather than trying to stick in a ridiculous amount versus a typical bad player who's not going to fold his queen or whatever. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of just take your free card. I think on table 4 and don't get to overplaying hands like that so much. Versus the 14-12 is a crazy aggression factor, but I do think you need to just folds most of the time with your ace there, because I don't know what we're beating really. And now we're kind of in a bad spot. Bet sizing is a huge issue. I think what's going on is I think you're playing too many tables. I am having a tough time even keeping up with this commentating. I know that I can play 4 tables of Zoom. I mean, I used to 24 table. Not that I'm not trying to brag or something like that, but I've done a lot of mass multi-tabling over the years, and so playing 4 tables of Zoom is completely fine for me. Even though I don't really mass multi-table anymore, so it's a little bit more of a challenge than back in the day when I used to play a ridiculous amount of hands. But basically, I believe for you, Demi, I think this might be a little bit much because I think that you're not making quality decisions. I think, especially concerning your bet sizing. Like for instance, on table 3, they're calling the flop with the ace deuce there when the tight player raises on the flop is a little bit sketchy in my opinion, out of position. And then I know we're in a big hand on table 4. But you just sort of instantly pot it on table 3 without even thinking, and that tells me that maybe you're not putting enough
that's it.
time to your decisions there.
So I will send you.
I'm just going to pause it there just so we're not both talking at the same time. So yeah, I mean, it's I'm not going to say that you are definitely playing too many tables, but I'm thinking that might be an issue. Because I mean, I'm not sure if you would agree there that full pot is... I mean, what is full pot going to accomplish once you hit trips no kicker there? We know on the flop that the guy either has nothing or he has us beat. It's one of the two. It was like ace 6-4. I think I'm sure I got the board wrong, but it was something like that. It was and there was no flush draw, I believe. It was basically you either have it or you don't, right? So on the turn, you can see that he insta-folded when we potted it because it was the time where he was just screwing around on the flop, and we had him beat. So we did call correctly on the flop. You need to always remember that we're not talking about this hand or that hand. That's what I was talking about, for instance, before with the Maniac. Demi made a good play in that particular hand to call it down with what was it, the 6, and the guy had an air ball with the king jack. He made a good play in that particular hand. But I think at least 50% of the time, even though he's a maniac, that guy's going to have us beat there. So it just boils down to the just basically, it boils down to the entire sample size. We need to play the hand out 10 times to understand how good our call or fold was. So the same thing in this hand. Even though we were right in this hand, I still think that with the ace-deuce there, I think it's fairly common to still just fold on the flop there. Given that we have no kicker and we're either completely behind versus a better ace, or he has nothing, of course. He had nothing this time. But the thing is, so that's the reason why the full pot just does not accomplish anything on the turn there. Because he either has us smoked with trips and a better kicker, in which case he's going nowhere, or he's got nothing, right? So by betting full pot, all we do is either build a bigger pot for his better hand or just get him to fold even faster, right? So I just think that, perhaps it's too many tables, but I think that was probably, the poorest option in that spot. I mean, I think that checking is a better idea, is a better option in that spot. I think that betting half pot is a better option in that pot. I think that just, And also your timing as well. I think it was kind of just boom right away, stick a full pot in his face. I mean, you're just not going to get action from anything but a better ace. And obviously, as you saw, he just insta-folded there because he had pocket sevens or something, and he's just not going to give you any action versus a full pot bet. I mean, that's actually the other thing I should mention that hand. I think I'm going a bit over here, but whatever. What if he has one of those middle strength hands? Like, let's just assume that the board was ace 6-4. I don't think it was. What was the board? Let's go back. It's in here. Okay, it was actually ace 8-9. Okay, let's assume that he had pocket tens on the flop. When you stick a full pot bet into his face on the turn, he's going to make a fold with that hand. Whereas if you maybe on the turn it's 271. What if you bet, $1.50, $1.40? He's going to get curious with his pocket tens and stick around. Whereas when you just spaz hit the pot button there, he's just going to fold those hands as well. So I kind of made a mistake before when I said that he always has either the nuts or air there. I don't think that's definitely the case. This guy actually has a 14, 12, 14 aggression factor, which is quite crazy. It's over 171 hands, so I'm sure that's not. That number will come down, but he's probably still a very aggressive player, and he might, be the type of player who raises on the flop with pocket tens or something as well. But so we don't want to blow that hand out of the water with just sticking a full pot right in his face on the turn there. So I don't know if that's playing too many tables or if that's just normal, but for you, Demi. But that was the thing that I think that I noticed the most in this session is bet sizing in certain spots, I think. And also I want to say timing as well. It was something I didn't really get into, but I saw you just kind of making very quick decisions sometimes, often when you were involved in several hands at once. And sometimes that's an indication of playing too many tables, but sometimes that's an indication of just not thinking the hand through enough as well. So I think that's the biggest thing that I'd like to point out to you in this video, and to all Drag the Bar members that are watching this, is really think about your bet sizes and what you're accomplishing. I think this hand was a perfect example of that. Especially on the later streets, turn and river. It's pretty hard to. I think everybody knows how to, the kind of the correct bet sizes to make on the pre-flop and the flop. I mean, Demi did completely fine all through this session with those. I think that most people know to raise 3x pre-flop. They know the kind of amounts that you should make it on the, if you're 3-betting. They know you should bet 60%, 50%, 70%, whatever it is, somewhere in there for your c-bets. But, when we're talking about, the turn in the river, you can see the pot sizes on table 3 and 4 there. I mean, they become a lot more significant. And, if you're making, like I talked about, I think in the, what hand are we going back to now? The one where you bet full pot, where you bet a stack. And I remember saying, like, well, if he's got the nuts, we're going to, we just blew half a stack here, right? So, because we're going to have to fold or something. So that's kind of the main point of this, and I think that hopefully this video was useful for that. And just really think about your bet sizing. If it is a too many tables thing, sorry for you, Demi, maybe cut down a little bit. It's difficult for me to commentate on 4 Zoom tables, but it's certainly a lot of people play 4. But you need to make sure that you're able to make solid decisions. Like, when you've got 2 hands going like you do at the same time here right now, you need to be able to have the time to think both hands through here and not just make a snap decision in one just so you can get, to thinking about the other. So if that is the case, maybe you want to, cut down to 3 tables or something like that for a while. I'm going to wrap it up at this point because I think I've talked enough here. I hope this video was useful for you guys. I think Demi is definitely on the right track. I talked about the playing a lot of hands in late position, which I think is fine at NL5 and NL10. The other point I was making also earlier in this was that that straight ahead style of play that I talk about in all my videos, my first book, on my blog, I still think that is absolutely the way to go. Definitely at NL5. Probably still for the most part at these stakes as well. We saw several examples of that. in both of these videos, with players just calling down the entire way. Versus very, very obvious, like, check raise two people on the flop and the guy calls with king 10. I think we remember that hand. So, don't try to get too tricky at these stakes is basically what I'm saying. So yeah, I'm going to cut it there. I think it was hopefully an interesting video for you guys. Leave me comments on Drag the Bar for the thread for this video if you have any. And yeah, thanks a lot for watching, guys. It's been BlackRain79 with dragthebar.com.